Hello everyone! So today I am going to be doing another chapter of the Tactical Guide to Women, and as I was reviewing this chapter, the thing that came to mind is that it's kind of a difficult book to do a review on. I feel that way over every book that I do a review on, except for Rational Male. When I first started that, there was so much new information there, it was really interesting. The struggle with, for example, when I did the review on Mystery Method, there was so much unhealthy stuff in that book that it was difficult to find anything positive to talk about. It was like, okay, it's effective. I will say that it's effective, but it's really not healthy for forming a relationship with someone. So, I mean, is it an effective way to manipulate people? Yes. Is it effective for building a healthy long-term relationship? No. You're never going to have a healthy relationship with a woman if you act like this. In this book, the problem is, it's extremely healthy. If you want to have a healthy relationship with a woman, read this book. This is the one. This right here. The problem is, when I'm reviewing it, it's like, well, this is just good relationship advice. Like, every time I read it, it's like, this should be common sense, and I realize that common sense isn't particularly common, but it seems like a lot of this is really good, really solid relationship advice. So, this is stuff that I find myself doing in my relationship with my husband. This is stuff that I find people in healthy relationships doing. This is how it's done. So, there is a lot in here where it's like, should I mention that? People should know this. People are probably going to sit there and go, well, yeah, of course, obviously. But other people don't know this, as I've seen in many other people who do not have healthy relationships with women. So this is actually good advice. Like, if you struggle with women, if you struggle with forming relationships, this is the book to read. I've seen a lot of guys who are like, here's 90 red flags that you should avoid in women. That doesn't help you. Read this book. This book right here. This is the one that's got it. So, chapter 5, maturity. And this is the bright triad. This is where he's talking about the things in women that you want to look for. Instead of 90 red flags to avoid, look for these traits. Emotional maturity sits squarely in the center of this book's core concern, risk management. There will be conflict and challenges in any relationship. If she responds like a skilled adult, you'll sail through them. If not, then your problems will be compounded. Not only will you have to handle the situation without a teammate, you'll have to spend your time and energy compensating for her drag. This is very true of any relationship. I know this is a guide for men in relationships with women, but a lot of this is also applicable to women in relationships with men. I know in my own relationships, I've had occasions where I've been in relationships with people who do not know how to be in relationships. I'm thinking of one person in particular that I dated for about 2 years. He was an alcoholic, and he did not handle problems well. And I know that sometimes people, they date someone and they break up with them and then they blame that other person for like every problem in the relationship. There's another side of the story. It's like, okay, yeah. He caused all the problems. Yeah, whatever. But sometimes someone gets into a relationship and it's like, I don't know what the problem was with this person. Like, they just looked for things to be upset about. They looked for things to fight about. They looked for things to blame me for. It's like, sometimes you get into a relationship like that, and that was one of those relationships where it's like, I think the vast majority of the problems in that relationship, and I mean, it lasted for about 2 years, it was him. It was all him. Like, he'd get drunk, and then he'd accuse me of cheating on him when I definitely hadn't cheated on him and definitely wasn't going to cheat on him. And then he'd get pissy about it, and sometimes he'd solve that by cheating on me. And I mean, I've never been the kind of person who gets alarmed by that sort of thing. Like, I don't care if people cheat on me. I prefer them to be honest about it so that we can all be safe in our behaviors. Like, are you using protection when you're with this other person? Do I need to go get tested for STDs? Stuff like that. But I don't care. I don't care. So he would go cheat on me. And then instead of talking with me about it, like a mature adult, he would get upset about it, and then he'd be upset because he cheated on me. So instead of facing that, because he was an alcoholic, he avoided his problems. That's what alcoholism is for a lot of people, and that's what a lot of alcoholics do. They avoid their problems with alcohol, but they avoid their problems in any other area of their life too. So then he was, instead of facing the fact that he cheated on me, which I don't care, but he cared, he would then blame me for cheating on him, which I hadn't done. And then he would get angry at me for cheating on him, which, again, I hadn't done. And then he'd treat me horribly because I cheated on him, which somehow resulted in him cheating on me, and then I would be sitting there, like, trying to follow the mental gymnastics that he was going through in order to blame every single problem on me. And it would be like, dude, I just came over because I thought you wanted to hang out. Like, what the hell? Like, okay, like, Jesus. When bad things happen, because bad things inevitably happen, if you have a partner who is a good partner, you have someone who can go through those problems with you, a teammate who can help pull you up and kind of help support you, someone who cares about you and knows your struggles and gives a shit. And that's vitally important. And I think everybody really wants something like that in their lives. Maybe it's not a sexual or romantic relationship, but you need someone in your life who gives a damn about you. But if you have the wrong partner, things can be going swimmingly, and they're still, like, causing shit in your life. It's just bad. It's just bad. Emotional maturity, big part of that. Very important. A couple of questions leap to mind regarding Damon's choice of partner. First, why did he choose a woman in need of so much emotional support and rescue? Second, why did he make a serious commitment by moving in with her when there were clear signs of immaturity and irresponsibility? We will revisit both topics in later chapters. They are the downfall of many men. Like with other chapters, he tells a story about a relationship and gives kind of this example of a relationship where things were not going well. And in the previous chapter, he had relationships where things were not going well, but the couple managed to pull it together. I don't think he ever gives us a conclusion on this couple, but I don't think it's necessary for him to give a conclusion on this couple. The woman clearly had some really unhealthy patterns that she was demonstrating, and it was a very young couple, like they were just starting out. And he really jumped into that relationship, and it's like, okay, you know she's sexy, you know she's hot, but this girl has some serious issues. Are you sure you want to deal with that much crazy? So that's something that he talks about again in this chapter. I don't know if I'm going to get to it in my notes, so I want to mention that. But yeah, men sometimes go for the shiny, and he talks about that, going for the shiny, and he's a very amusing writer, so it's quite entertaining to read. There's a lot to look for on the first few dates. Let's narrow it down to 5 non-negotiable must-have emotional skills that any wife or girlfriend should possess. Insight, intellectual nuance, resilience, internalization, and self-maintenance. This is a big chapter. There's a lot of information in here. So he goes on to give descriptions of each of these 5 essential skills. And it's important. Like, he makes some really good points in this chapter. And so I'm going to try and go over them, but I feel like I'm not going to be able to cover all the information once again. The author doesn't know I exist. I'm not being paid to promote this book, but please get this book if you want to have healthy relationships. Couples can only be as insightful as the least insightful partner is willing to be. Substance abuse is a perfect but sad example. The non-addicted partner might insist on discussing the real issue of addiction, while the addict is mired in distractions, justifications, and rationalizations. Conversations go nowhere until the addicted partner is willing to drop the story and exercise insight. Yep. Going back to my story about my alcoholic ex-boyfriend, there you go. That works if you flip the genders. If you end up dating a girl who is, the thing that comes to mind because I was an exotic dancer, a coke addict. If you date a coke addict, she's always going to be acting crazy. You can't fix that until she realizes that she's got a problem. And you can't expect to come white knighting in And for her to somehow magically realize, if you just explain it to her very clearly and rationally, hey, like, hey, you have a problem with cocaine, she's not just going to process that right away. Like, it's rough. It's bad. Addiction isn't just addiction. Addiction is the physical addiction, the habit of the addiction, and also the underlying psychological issues that cause the addiction to become an issue in the first place, which frequently, but not always, means that they're running away from their problems. They're using that drug or that alcohol or whatever to medicate a problem that they have in their life that they don't have the skills to cope with. And so, like my addicted coworker, my alcoholic coworker that I had to deal with earlier, back before he started, trying to get me fired because he wanted me to sleep with him and I wouldn't sleep with him, which he then blamed me for. I'm noticing a pattern there. He had the addiction. That was bad. The addiction is bad. But there was also the tendency to blame his problems on everything and everyone around him and not take any responsibility for his own self. And in his case, it was, and I see this a little bit in the manosphere too, it's the women. The women are at fault. If only I could find a woman who would love me and care for me and take care of me and mother me and accept me for who I am, I would be fine. Like the addiction would just somehow evaporate on its own, and his inability to be responsible for himself in any meaningful way would also somehow not matter. And I tried to explain this to him, but, again, when you try to explain something to an addict, it's not necessarily going to process. Like, you can try. Good luck. And he goes on to say, like, it's not just addicts. Addiction is the most extreme example of a problem that you can find in lots of other people. And that's something that's I've experienced in people that I know who aren't addicts, but they have problems in their life and they don't want to take a responsibility for it. I have a family member that I got into a fight with yesterday. I didn't handle it well. I tend to be the more explosive member of my family, where, like, I'll get mad and I'll shout and I'll curse. But other members of my family, they just resort to passive-aggressive behaviors because they don't want to face the fact that maybe they make mistakes. And this is one of those family members where it's like she doesn't want to accept any responsibility for mistakes that she makes or things that she does wrong, and you cannot criticize her. And so the problem again becomes you can't be any more insightful in a discussion with this individual than she's willing to be. So you're stuck. Essential skill 2 is emotional nuance. Unfortunately, unhealthy defenses are easy and natural. One of the most primitive and least productive defenses is known as splitting, which refers to difficulty holding opposing views about oneself or others. The person who relies on splitting can't reconcile the fact that she simultaneously feels hurt by her partner and the fact that she loves him. It's one or the other. He's either good or bad, an angel or a devil. This one was interesting for me because I've heard the term splitting on the internet a lot and I didn't know what it meant, and this seems like a very good quick, useful explanation for what splitting is. If your partner becomes mad at you, and especially if she has borderline personality disorder, this is where I always hear about it, but I'm assuming that there's other milder forms, but if she's mad at you, all of a sudden she can't see your positive aspects, she's only seeing that she's mad at you. And in borderline personality disorder, which is where I've heard it used before, I'd hear this term splitting, and I didn't really understand why they called it splitting. But I did know that there was that pattern because I dated a girl with borderline personality disorder where it's like, I really, really love you, the most awesome person in the world. Wow, I hate your guts. I really love you, you're the most awesome person in the world. Dude, you can't do anything right. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's we didn't date for very long. It was interesting. It was one of those things like, and again, like because I'm me and I'm a little weird, I guess when people break up, they don't want to be friends anymore. And I don't know if this works that way with women as much because I haven't dated many women. Like after her, I was done. It's like, okay, sleeping with women is one thing. Dating women is a whole other thing I just don't want to deal with. I kind of went MGTOW, except I without the M. Um, I just didn't want to have anything to deal with women for a while after that. That was kind of it was off-putting to say the least. But I watched her because we stayed friends afterwards. We were coworkers. She was a stripper, and I would watch her get into these relationships with other people around the club, and it would be like, dude, you're doing the same pattern, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's like that's got to be exhausting. It's exhausting for people that she's dealing with, but I don't think that she was aware that she was doing that. And I don't think anyone in her life was in a position to tell her. But the thing is, if you are not emotionally nuanced, if you're not emotionally nuanced, that's the term used, enough to realize that you're, for example, with me and my husband, when he had the brain tumor, I was deeply hurt by how the brain tumor affected him and his behavior. He was much more emotionally distant. And so I felt like I'd lost this very close friendship that I had with him, and I was very, very hurt by that. And at the same time, I was able to look at him and realize he was an extraordinary person. He was an extraordinary man. And so, luckily, I probably could have done a better job of this. I would be the first person to say I probably could have done a better job of this, but for me, it was deeply hurtful. For a long time, I was very angry at him, and I was very hurt with him, especially once we found out it was a brain tumor. Then it was one of those deals where it's like, well, you can't sweep this one under the rug anymore. You got to face the fact that things have been screwy for the last, half a decade. I was very hurt with him, but at the same time, I looked at it and it's like, well, he's still an extraordinary man. He's still an extraordinary human being, and I still love him. And holding those two very opposing feelings, I remember when I was researching abortion, I was trying to see the pro-life side of things and I was trying to see the pro-choice side of things. And I remember there were days that I felt like I had a headache because I was looking at the situation from both sides of the spectrum simultaneously. And I'm seeing these two opposing arguments, and they both have really, really good, valid points. It's like, how do you justify that in your own head? Now, this is a very complicated argument, and so it gives you a bit of a headache, but I can only imagine, the headache that it can cause in an emotional sense if you're in a relationship and you're just not well practiced at looking at a person as a whole thing. So, also, for example, with parents, if you have parents who screwed up in their parenting and they did a shitty job in some aspect or another of it, you might still love them, but they sucked at this or that or the other thing. Sometimes it can be hard to maintain a functional and healthy relationship with your parents when it's like, I love you, but you did a really crappy job. Being able to hold on to that information and keep kind of a level-headed and emotionally nuanced kind of perspective on your partner when you go through the ups and downs in life. And sometimes partners make mistakes. You in a relationship are going to make mistakes. Having someone in your life who's able to look at you and sees you as a complete person who's beautiful but flawed is very important. The partner who lacks emotional nuance may one day try to prevent you from exiting the scene during a heated moment. That puts you in a very vulnerable position. While I am unaware of any statistics that measure splitting as a contributor to domestic violence arrests, I've seen enough to wager that nothing good comes from blocking someone's exit when they're trying to cool off. All right, this is a book that's written for men who are entering into relationships primarily with women, and this is a terrifying and very important point to make note of. Sometimes you will get into arguments with your partner. Sometimes you will get angry. Sometimes you will get deeply angry. And my husband and I have had talks about this, Sometimes you just get really, really mad. And it's like, sometimes you need a moment to go cool off. Now, for different people, that's going to be different things. For me, I need a moment to go cool off because I'm going to start saying things that are hurtful and mean because I'm angry and I want to hurt you. And I need to go and take a break and cool off so that I don't just go wagging my tongue and say things that are just mean, that aren't even true, that I don't even mean, but just things that are mean and hurtful. I don't want to do that. It's not productive, it's not helpful to the argument, and it's not even stuff that I really think. I'm just trying to find the most hurtful thing I can say and poke you with it. There's that, but then there's also people who are like, you know what? I want to hit you. I'm so mad, I want to hit you. I need a moment. I need to go calm down. Maybe I need to punch a punching bag or something. I need to go so that I'm not sitting there staring at you, wishing that I could slap you in the face. I mean, he talks about it in the book too. When you get into a fight with someone, even a romantic partner, you have an adrenal response. You do have a little bit of that fight or flight. And so it's very natural to have that, I want to fight you. Step away. Take a moment. Cool down. Calm down. Don't do anything you're going to regret in an argument. If you really, really need, if things are getting so heated that you need a bit of a break, take that break. He's looking at saying, like, if she's not emotionally nuanced, and if she's seeing you as the ultimate bad guy because she's switched from, well, I love you, over to you're a horrible person, she's not going to feel like giving you any ground. She's not going to feel like giving you a break. And he's looking and saying, in his professional experience, in his clinical experience, he has seen it too many occasions where somebody who's splitting, who's looking at you as the ultimate bad guy, isn't going to give you that break you need to calm down and get away and get a rest, which means that she's going to back you into a corner until you feel like you do need to lash out physically. And who's going to go to jail for that? You are. I'm not saying it's not your fault for hitting a woman, but if you need to get away from a situation, you need to be able to get away from a situation. And that's an important thing to be aware of. It's an important thing to be aware of in any argument with your partner. If you notice that things are getting heated, you need to know that there's an exit, and you need to be able to, both of you need to be able to reach that exit. She needs to be able to reach the exit if she needs it. You need to be able to reach the exit if you need it. And if you see your partner trying to block off the exit, that's a very bad sign. You've heard the expression, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. That's only true when neither partner is running a deficit in the strength department. In a healthy relationship, when there's two of you and you're working together as a team, you support one another, you build each other up, you give each other what you need to help each other get through difficult situations. There's a reason that people form couples, and those couples are meant to be lifelong. Like, there's a reason humans are monogamous. There's a reason that we last for long periods of time. There's a reason that we stay together. Raising offspring is a wonderful example. Raising offspring is just plain hard. It's a huge pain in the ass. You really need a partner. You really need a teammate because it's hard. And building each other up, tag teaming where, I'm tired, I'm ready to scream at our child. I need a break because they've been driving me up the wall. They've been pushing every single button I have. You deal with them for a little while. I'm going to get my cup of coffee and sit outside for 5 to 10 minutes and drink my coffee and be mad. It's good to have a partner. It's good to have a partner when you're going through life and things get bad. Maybe you get sick. It's good to have a partner who notices that you're sick and takes care of you. But if you've got a partner who's not helping, if you've got a partner who doesn't pull their own weight, then you're pulling your weight, plus you're pulling your partner's weight, plus you're not getting any support when things go bad. If you don't have a good partner, you're just screwing yourself over more. No partner is better than a bad partner. Each moment you spend rescuing her from the emotional distress of minor disappointment is one moment you won't spend pursuing your goals. The unresilient woman will utterly suck the wind out of your sails. Okay, so we've moved on from emotional nuance to resilience. I forgot to mention that. It brings to mind the idea of having your own frame, having your own goals, setting your own way. Men need to have their own sense of direction. You can't build your life around a woman and her emotional ups and downs. If you have a partner who is not resilient, that's what you're going to find yourself doing, because she's going to be up and then she's going to be down and then she's going to be sad and then she's going to need this and then everything is an emergency and then everything is something you need to rescue her from. It's a huge time sink. And it's a time sink that doesn't actually build any kind of a reward from you other than occasionally getting your rocks off with her. If you have a woman who is strong and resilient in her spirit, you have a partner, you have a teammate, you have someone who can help you to reach your goals. And women do tend to fall into that follower pattern. I'm not going to say all women do that, because not all women do. But we tend to like being a second in command. This is the reason I get so pissed off when guys are like, well, you're the pilot of the plane and the woman is more like the stewardess. She's in the back serving the drinks to the passengers who are your kids or whatever, but she's not really got to say in anything that's going on. You're the one steering the plane. No. If you got a good woman, you're the pilot and she's the co-pilot. The two of you steer the plane together. You set the course, maybe, but she might look at it and say, this is a great course, but what if we do this? And you say, hey, that's a great idea. That cuts down on our expenditures, on our time, on our effort, on our energy that we have to put out for our goals. You want a good teammate, and a resilient woman will be that. It's a heck of a lot better than some stewardess who's sitting in the back who isn't good for anything. Internalization. I didn't really know what he meant when he said internalization, so I was really curious about what he was getting at when he was talking about it. If she externalizes and she's always comfortable in her role as victim, then she's bound to one day label you as her oppressor. I wouldn't wait around for her to mature, because growth requires the same internalization skills she lacks. Internalization then is being able to take responsibility for your own role in the problems that you have in your life. Sometimes bad things happen to you. Sometimes your house gets hit by a tornado. Okay, my house got hit by a tornado. That's bad. Could I have planned for the tornado? Well, not really. I mean, you don't expect a tornado. It's not like something I was saying, Tuesday, 5 o'clock, I'm going to have a tornado. You don't plan it out in that way. However, should I have built a storm shelter? That might have been a good idea. Yeah. That's the internalization part. What can I do to take control of my situation in life so that I'm not just a powerless victim to the circumstances that I find myself in? That's important. Very important. Vitally important. You want a partner, regardless of whether you're a man or a woman, you want a partner who's capable of doing this at some level or another. Again, nobody's going to be perfect. Some people are better at this than others, but you need somebody who can at least baseline do this. Going back to my alcoholic coworker, I am the victim of every relationship I've ever been in. Ooh, I have an appointment. I gotta go. I'll talk to you guys in a minute. All right, I'm back. I feel bad. We had a lady coming over for an appointment, and I just scared the living hell out of her when I jumped out of my car to say hello. But let's see, where were we? One last thing I will say about externalizing all your problems, blaming other people for your problems, saying that other people are the source of your problems. I see it in feminism. I see it in feminism a lot. The patriarchy is responsible for the woes of all women. If I am a woman, therefore I am automatically the victim of patriarchy. Patriarchy is oppressing me, and therefore I am born into this world oppressed. There are things about my life that are just completely horrible, and there's nothing I can do about it because the patriarchy is just weighing me down. It really, that mentality, in my opinion, stops women from really spreading their wings and flying. It's like, I can't really do what I'm supposed to do in life or what I was meant to do in life, or my achievements are being stunted because of this invisible patriarchy that's floating over my head. And you would think, well, that's really stupid, and feminists are dumb for thinking that. Yes, they are, but on the flip side, the manosphere does the same thing. It does the exact same thing. Women are the cause of our problems. Women are, the sisterhood uber alles or whatever. It's oppressing us. It's causing our many problems. The reason that you can't find a loving relationship with someone who cares about you, who is loyal to you and is special to you, the reason for that is because of women and because of feminism and all this stuff. And the thing is, you can, in most cases, the vast majority of cases, you can find a healthy, loving relationship. But the first thing you need to do is take a very good, hard look at yourself. And then you need to find somebody who's actually capable of forming a healthy relationship. Because if you're not capable of forming a healthy relationship, it doesn't matter how nice she is, it's not going to work. And if she's not capable of forming a nice relationship, it doesn't matter how good you are, it's not going to work. You need two people who know how to play the game in order to play the game. But you have an extraordinary amount of control over that. You get to pick any woman who's out there as long as she'll pick you back. And you get to fix yourself if there's any part of you that's broken. And if you choose to do that, then you can successfully form a relationship. It might take you years of introspection and improvement and growth. It's far more possible than I think a lot of guys want to believe. There's a lot of black pill guys out there who are like, it just won't happen. It's like, well, not with that attitude, but also it's much more possible than I think a lot of people want to believe. If we wait until we feel like taking good care of ourselves, we might die of old age before we get there. Essential skill number 5 is self-maintenance. This brings me back to the health at every size kind of issue, which I know is falling under a certain degree of criticism at this point in time. It's just not the truth. It's just not true. Health at every size is like this weird, surreal, reality-denying movement that came about as a response to teenage anorexia and models who were too skinny. But it's like we've taken the pendulum and it scooched too far in the direction of too skinny is a good thing, way in the other direction of, hey, let's just have everybody be morbidly obese and say that that's beautiful and that we should love it and accept it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's not reflective of reality. A person whose body is so unhealthily overweight that their movement is restricted is not a healthy person. They can be a beautiful person. They can have a lovely spirit. They can have a lovely soul. They can have a sweet, kind, tempered personality. But if they're deeply physically unhealthy, they have a problem. And it's not a problem that we can just sweep under the rug because it's going to affect their quality of life, particularly as they grow older. It affects many areas of life too. Like, poor self-care is a problem. It just is. I know we would all like to pretend that it doesn't make a difference. Like, oh, well, if I'm a mess and I don't shower and I stink, you should love me anyway. It's like, well, yeah, I might love you, but I want you to be on the other end of the room. I don't want to get close to you because I might vomit. If you are not taking good care of yourself, that is a major issue. If she's neglecting herself physically, spiritually, or emotionally, then she's not bringing the best version of herself into the relationship. Worse, poor self-care can snowball into all kinds of physical and emotional problems that could easily have been avoided. Yeah, that right there, what he just said. There you go, that. But can't wait to do the next chapter. Looking forward to doing the next chapter. And until then, I'll talk to you guys later.